They say we live in the most connected era in human history. Every thought, every image, every heartbeat can be shared across the planet in seconds. And yet, isn't it strange that so many people feel utterly alone? Isn't it curious that in a world where technology has made communication instantaneous, so many individuals feel like they were born into the wrong story? As though they are visitors on a planet that doesn't quite speak their language? We are more connected than ever, yet many feel a distance so vast it cannot be crossed by the swipe of a screen. This isn't just a poetic complaint or some cry for belonging. It is one of the most quietly profound paradoxes of our time, advanced in our technologies, yet estranged in our souls. Billions of people, each with the power to communicate across the planet in the blink of an eye, still find themselves searching for a single place on Earth where they truly belong. It's a paradox, really. We have the tools to share every facet of our lives, but still, something deep within us remains disconnected. But let me offer you a thought. What if that feeling of being out of sync, of alienness, isn't just some psychological anomaly or poetic musing? What if it's reflective of something more fundamental? What if you weren't born in the wrong city or the wrong era, but on the wrong planet? I know, it sounds absurd. But science, when it's brave, asks questions not just about what is, but what might be. And philosophy, when it's honest, doesn't shy away from the absurd. Together, they teach us something crucial: to stay open to wonder, even when that wonder leads us to places we didn't expect. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking about little green men and flying saucers landing on the White House lawn. I'm talking about consciousness, about origin, about the nature of self-awareness itself. What does it mean to be human? And what if, just maybe, some of us are not entirely of Earth? What if there are people among us who remember things they shouldn't, who dream in star maps, who feel more at home staring into a telescope than scrolling through social media? What if some of us aren't just from here, but are merely passing through? There's a growing number of people spanning across cultures and continents who whisper the same truth: I don't belong here. And when they say that, they're not talking about political divisions or social cliques or being misunderstood. No, they're talking about existence itself. They're saying, I don't belong in this body, on this planet, in this time. So let's explore this thought guided not just by scientific metaphor, but by a very human question. What if you're not from here? And what if that's not a problem, but a purpose? Imagine, if you will, what it would feel like to land on a planet with no memory of how you arrived. The language sounds familiar, but just off, like a song you know but can't quite place. The customs feel mechanical, as if you're just going through motions that don't quite make sense. The emotions exaggerated. The pace, unbearably fast one moment, painfully stagnant the next. And all the while, there's this quiet ache, subtle echo from somewhere else, somewhere you've never been, but you remember it all the same. You might tell yourself it's anxiety, childhood trauma, bad luck, or some chemical imbalance. But what if it's none of those things? What if that ache, that friction, is the residue of a home that doesn't exist here? What if it's the memory of a place far beyond Earth? Let's pause here and consider something. We forget sometimes that the atoms in our bodies were forged in stars. That's not just poetics, it's scientific fact. You are literally made of stardust, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron ore, forged in the belly of ancient stars. And if your body came from the stars, is it really so far-fetched to wonder whether your consciousness, your awareness, might have had a similar origin? Now, I know this sounds abstract, but let's stay grounded. And by grounded, I mean let's look at data not from telescopes or particle accelerators, but from people, from real-life experiences. Across thousands of documented hypnotherapy sessions, past life regressions, and soul memory explorations especially, those pioneered by the late Dolores Canona, pattern emerges. Certain individuals recall lifetimes, not on Earth, but elsewhere. Civilizations that don't appear in any textbook. Societies that function by harmony, not hierarchy. Realms where light is not just illumination, but communication. They describe, in vivid detail, lives lived in higher dimensions, in non-physical forms, in star systems, with names that feel like music, like memory, like something they knew long ago. They speak of coming to Earth not to escape, but to serve, to assist, to help humanity remember something it's long since forgotten. And here's the twist. These aren't the stories of dreamers or fringe dwellers. These accounts come from everyday people engineers, teachers, software developers, doctors, farmers, ordinary folks who in a quiet moment of truth say the extraordinary thing. I don't think I'm from here. So, what are the signs that someone, or perhaps even you, isn't entirely native to Earth's frequency? Let's explore a few. First, a deep and persistent sense of not belonging. You could be surrounded by people, loved by them even, and still feel like you're on the outside of an invisible wall. Like you're watching the human experience through glass. Everyone else seems to intuitively know how to play the game, how to chase goals, how to care about the things that matter. But you find yourself questioning it all. You see the absurdity in the 9-to-5 grind, in the status symbols, the emotional manipulation sold as entertainment. You can't quite explain it, but the whole thing feels like a simulation, like a dream you're lucid inside of. Not because you're smarter or better, just different. And this differentness isn't ego. It's not delusion. It's more like homesickness for a place you've never been in this life, but that your soul remembers. A vibration, not a location. A peace, not a destination. For those who feel this way, let me say this gently. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're simply tuned to a different cosmic frequency. Earth is broadcasting on one wavelength hand. Your antenna are picking up something else. That's not dysfunction. That's design. Let's consider another sign, an intense fascination with the stars. While many of us enjoy stargazing, some feel something more than curiosity a pull, as if the night sky is calling to them, whispering secrets in constellations. They're drawn to books on astrophysics, ancient civilizations, UFOs not, because they seek novelty, but because they sense familiarity. They look into the sky and feel seen not by God, or myth, or story, but by memory. For them, space isn't just a place, it's a previous address. And when we explore this through the lens of consciousness, not mechanics, it begins to make sense. After all, if time and space are relative, as Einstein showed us, who's to say the journey of the soul must be linear? Who's to say your consciousness hasn't danced across galaxies before settling into a human brain? I'm not here to convince you. That's not my job. I'm here to invite wonder. Because the moment we stop wondering, we stop evolving. And this world, this beautiful, chaotic, aching world needs evolution now more than ever. Let's consider another paradox. Those who feel least connected to this world often come here to heal it. Think about that. The souls who struggle the most to fit in are often the ones with the most light to offer. Why? Because they're not confined by Earth's dysfunctions. They're not attached to its fear, scarcity, or ego. They see through the illusion, sometimes painfully so. And while that insight isolates them, it also empowers them to transform it. Earth is not an easy school. If you're here, it's not because you're weak, it's because you're strong. And if you feel out of place, maybe that's the first clue that you're here on purpose and not by accident. Let's consider a subtler sign: heightened intuition or psychic sensitivity. We live in a world that praises logic and dismisses emotion as unreliable. Yet some navigate life with an internal compass that defies explanation. They know things before they happen. They sense others' emotions like radio waves. They dream of events that unfold in real life. These aren't quirks, they're signals. Persistent, undeniable signals. What is that? Hallucination? Coincidence? Or is it possible that these abilities are normal elsewhere and only appear strange here because Earth is still catching up? And here's the thing about loneliness, it's often the birthplace of empathy. Empathy is the universal translator. It transcends language, culture, and species. If you feel deeply, if you sense others' pain without them saying a word, that's not weakness. That's your soul speaking. And maybe, just maybe, That's why you're here. We've spoken about the sense of not belonging, the magnetic pull toward the stars, and heightened sensitivity and intuition. These are not mere quirks of character. They are fingerprint signatures of a soul that remembers something more, something greater, something beyond the confines of Earth's familiar boundaries. If you've ever felt a deep, unexplainable longing for something that you can't name, that's not just nostalgia. It's a resonancy of vibration reaching across time and space, tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you're not just from here. Let me ask you, have you ever looked at the world and wondered, why do we live this way? The patterns of society. Why do people lie so easily? Why do they hurt what they love? Why do they compete instead of collaborate? If you've ever felt like you were observing humanity from a distance, not fully participating in the drama, not quite understanding the motivations, then you, my friend, might not be tuned into the same frequency as the majority. The systems of the world, the status hierarchies, the ego games, the tribal norm scans seem foreign, almost laughable. Like a language you can't quite understand even though you're speaking it. And yet, this confusion carries its own beauty. It's a refusal to adapt to dysfunction. It's a quiet rebellion against unconsciousness. Not because you're morally superior, far from it, but because you can't pretend. You can't pretend to care about things that lack depth. You can't participate in systems that lack integrity. Your soul won't allow it. And that's not a flaw. That's a sign of alignment. It means you're still connected to something greater. This experience of existential isolation, it's not a flaw, it's a signal, a deep and persistent reminder that you're tuned to a different frequency. And while that may cause you pain or confusion, it also positions you to see what others miss. It empowers you to transform what others are blind to. Now, let's dive deeper into something we've touched on already, cosmic memory. This is a strange concept, but bear with me for a moment. It shows up in different forms. Maybe it's vivid dreams of other planets, or the spontaneous recall of languages or symbols that don't fit in any earthly context. Perhaps you feel inexplicably drawn to certain places, to certain skies, or maybe you feel a nostalgic pull, not to a specific person or place, but to an era you've never lived in. These are not mere fantasies or past life regressions, as some might call them. They are perhaps memories of something far older than this planet. Memories of lives, you've lived lives, not confined to Earth's history, but spread across time and space. And let's pause here for a moment. Science may not have the tools to measure these experiences yet, but science is always evolving, just as Einstein's theories expanded our understanding of time and space. Who's to say our understanding of consciousness can't evolve in the same way? What if consciousness is not a product of the brain, but a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or light? If that's true, then consciousness might be able to travel, shift, and remember. And that opens the door to everything. Now, consider the profound sensitivity that many of these alien souls experience. They aren't just empathic, they feel at a level that's difficult for others to comprehend. They weep not just at pain, but at beauty. They're moved by the smallest things, a fleeting moment of kindness, a tree swaying in the wind, the sound of a distant flute. They feel the weight of a stranger's grief as if it were their own. Society might tell them, you're too sensitive, you need thicker skin. But what if sensitivity is not a weakness, but an evolutionary advantage? What if it's the very thing that allows them to heal a planet that has forgotten how to feel? Empathy is not weakness. It is the highest form of intelligence, a form of resonance, a way of understanding the universe through the language of feeling. And those who carry this resonance, they are not here to remain silent. They're here to amplify compassion, to turn down the noise of fear and hatred until the frequency of love becomes the dominant wave. And here's where we circle back to something crucial, the sense of mission. If you feel out of place, if your purpose seems elusive, let me tell you this, you are not here by accident. If your soul feels like it came from somewhere else, it's likely because it has a role to play here. You may not know what that role is yet. You may not have figured it out. But there's a deep calling within you that won't go away. That nagging feeling of, I'm here for something greater. Maybe it's not to be famous. Maybe it's not to accumulate wealth or status. You came here to be functional, to serve a planet in transition, to help humanity remember that, deep down, it's made of stars. And if that mission feels like a weight, let me tell you something. It's a weight of purpose. And purpose gives you a reason to move through the pain, through the isolation, through the misunderstanding. It gives you the strength to continue to push forward even when the world around you doesn't seem to understand what you're carrying. So, what's the takeaway from all this? You're not broken. You're not out of place. You're not lost. You're simply in the process of remembering the universe is vast, immeasurably vast, and there are many ways to exist in it. But Earth, with its chaos and contrast, offers something unique. It offers friction. It offers resistance. Just as muscles are built through resistance training, so too is consciousness strengthened through contrast. You've been sent here not just to fit in, but to bring light into a world that's lost its way. Now, I understand this isn't easy. It can be exhausting, like swimming through thick molasses while trying to teach others how to breathe underwater. But that's not failure. It's friction. And friction leads to contact. And contact leads to influence. And influence, when it's driven by compassion, is how planets evolve. If you're still here, still fighting through the confusion, still holding on, then I want you to hear this. You are doing something extraordinary. You are anchoring a higher frequency. You are helping to shift the planet, and you are not alone in this process. There's one final pattern I want to touch on before we finish, how some people relate to death. For most, death is a fearsome subject, something to be avoided, something to deny. It's seen as an end to tragedy. But for certain souls, those who feel they aren't fully of this world, death is not an end. It's a transition, a shift in frequency, much like changing the channel on a cosmic radio. The music doesn't end, it just changes its wavelength. For these souls, death is not a foe, it's a guide. And perhaps that's why so many alien souls are drawn to healing practices, because they've already made peace with the idea that life is a cyclically a transition. They know that the body is not the being, and that death, in its essence, is just a doorway to another experience. And this brings us to the final realization. You didn't come here to belong. You came here to become, to evolve, to be a tuning fork that resonates with the frequencies of the universe. You are not an accident. You are a messenger, a catalyst, a beacon of light in a world that needs you more than it knows. You are not lost. You are precisely where you need to be. Now, let's circle back to a concept we've already touched on. Purpose. You might not be aware of it yet, but it's likely that you're here for a reason that transcends the usual pursuits of wealth, fame, or status. Purpose can feel elusive, like a song playing just beyond the edge of your hearing. But there's something profound here, something that only those who felt alien to the world can truly understand. The paradox is this: those who feel least connected to this world are often the ones who come here to heal it. Think about that. The souls who struggle the most to fit in are often the ones with the most light to offer. They may not be recognized for their contributions yet, and they might even feel isolated, but their very difference is their gift. They see through the illusions that keep us trapped. They see the societal dysfunctions we often ignore, because for them, they're not entangled in these webs. They weren't born into Earth's inherited patterns of fear, scarcity, and ego. And if you feel that disconnect, if you feel that sense of being out of place, perhaps it's because you are here to serve a larger purpose. Earth, in its chaotic, beautiful, tumultuous state, needs change. It needs a different kind of energy. Not from the people who already conform, but from those who are willing to disrupt, to bring coherence to a place that's still in the middle of its evolutionary growing pain. So, let's break this down a little further. Let's say your cosmic mission feels like a heavy burden. You wonder if it's too much to carry, too big a task to fulfill. Well, let me remind you that strength is not defined by how much you can handle alone, but by how much you are willing to offer in service to a higher cause. Your strength lies in your ability to hold your ground, to continue growing and evolving, even when you feel like a stranger in your own life. Perhaps you're not here to fit in. You might be here to challenge the very systems that perpetuate suffering, conflict, and division. The more alien you feel to this world, the more likely it is that you have been sent to anchor a higher frequency to raise the vibration of a planet that desperately needs it. Now, let's take a moment and focus on the idea of resonance. Because if you're wondering why you've always felt different, why your values seem to clash with the dominant systems around you, it might be because your inner vibration doesn't align with Earth's lower frequencies. The reason you can't find peace in conventional ways and conventional systems is because you're tuned to something higher. And it's not a defect, it's a feature. Think of it like this. Earth is broadcasting on one frequency, and your antennae, are picking up a different one. That's not dysfunction, that's design. And as I said before, resonance is how transformation happens. When something powerful hits a note, it reverberates. It doesn't argue, it vibrates, and as it does, others begin to feel that frequency and match it. For those of us who feel out of sync with Earth's frequency, the truth is this: we are not broken. We are simply calling forth a higher state of being for all of humanity. It's a slow process, but it begins with one tuning fork vibrating in the midst of dissonance. And if you are that tuning fork, if you are the one anchoring that higher frequency, it's not easy. It's exhausting. And you will feel isolated, misunderstood, and fatigued. But fatigue is not failure. It's friction. And friction creates contact. Contact is how change begins. And now, let's turn to something even more elusive: cosmic memory. This one's a little tricky to wrap our minds around. It's a strange phenomenon, but one that's documented again and again. Maybe it shows up as vivid dreams of other planets, or as the sudden recollection of symbols or languages you don't recognize yet somehow feel familiar. Or perhaps you experience a powerful, inexplicable nostalgia for a sky you've never seen. These are more than just fleeting fantasies. These are experiences, imprints carried deep within your soul. And they don't fit the conventional mold of reality, but they carry a weight that makes them undeniable. You feel them, you sense them in your bones. And it's this remembrance that calls you to something greater, to a higher vibration. You see, science may not have tools to measure these experiences just yet, but that doesn't mean they're less real. And science, over time, has continuously expanded our understanding of reality. The world we live in today is so vastly different from the one we knew a century ago. And I have no doubt that our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the soul will continue to evolve. Maybe one day, science will recognize that consciousness isn't a byproduct of the brain at all. Maybe it's an elemental force of the universe, like gravity or light. If consciousness can travel, if it can shift, then the memories we carry of lives we've lived elsewhere are simply markers, breadcrumbs, pointing to the deeper truth of who we are. Now, let's bring this together, because all of these feelings, these impressions, these experiences, they lead us to a higher purpose. If you felt out of place in this world, if you've questioned your very existence, it's not because you are flawed, it's because your soul is trying to awaken to remind you of your cosmic origin. Think about it. If you've ever wondered why human behavior often seems so perplexing, why people lie, why they hurt those they love, why they destroy what they need, then perhaps the very fact that you find it bizarre, confusing, or painful is a sign. It means that your soul has evolved beyond the primal instincts that still govern this planet. You've been sent here not just to fit in, you've been sent here to remind humanity of a higher potential. You are not here to conform. You are here to be the mirror, to reflect a different possibility for the future. You are the one who will rise above the chaos and hold a higher frequency. You will become the light that the world desperately needs. And in the process, you will awaken others. Let's talk about death for a moment. For most, death is something to fear, something to deny. It's seen as an end. But for those who feel they are not fully of this world, death is not the end. It's simply a shift, like changing the channel on a cosmic radio. The music doesn't stop, it just shifts frequencies. If you've never feared death, but instead see it as a transition or return, you might be one of the souls who remembers that the body is not the being. That life as we know it is simply a part of a larger cosmic dance. And perhaps the reason why those who feel most alien are drawn to healing, to hospice, to therapy, is because they understand this transition. They've crossed it before. They know that death is not the enemy, is the teacher. It's a doorway to something beyond, not an end, but a continuation. Now, as we bring all of this together, I want you to understand something important. You are not alone. You might feel like an outsider, a stranger in your own skin, but that is simply part of the process. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to become. You were meant to anchor a higher frequency of light, a resonance that the world is ready for. You are not here by accident. Your soul came to this planet with a purpose, and now it's time for you to remember that purpose. The question isn't whether you belong. The question is, what will you do with the knowing that you never needed to? Because you didn't come here to belong. You came here to become